Hey, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe. Please hit like, and let's get going with this video. First of all, I am considered to be a watchmaker, although my degree, formal education, is in electrical engineering, and I've worked in aerospace my whole career. I got very curious about watches almost 20 years ago and started my adventure repairing watches. This is who I am. I also do music, as you've seen in my videos. I'm a guitar player for many years, and I do close-up magic, and I've done that for many years. But watchmaking is something that's very engaging and has been a passion of mine for almost 20 years now. So the question is, do you want to make money fixing watches? This is the question. Start a business, make money fixing watches. I'm going to give you a little bit of reality regarding this. So what I'm going to cover in this video is the initial investment for fixing watches, the clients, developing a clientele for fixing watches, and the time invested and the price that you demand for the work, and then at the end, is it worth it? The first investment in fixing watches is the learning investment. So what does it take to learn how to fix watches? You can use YouTube nowadays, and I've provided a number of videos that teach you the very basics up to very advanced work, and using things like the J-Cot tool, or using a staking set properly, or doing work on a lathe. There's a lot of information on it, but buying books, some basic books, and I have videos on the books, and reading about watches and reading about how to repair a basic watch is the first thing you're going to have to do. So there's an investment in learning, and it takes initially months and months to get that learning into your head. And the only way to get that knowledge into your head, I said learning before, I meant knowledge into your head, is by practicing. So like I did, the first thing I did was I bought off the internet about 50 Russian watches that were cheap. It was about $1 a watch, and I used my very simple and very poor tools at the time to disassemble these watches and reassemble these watches and practice. And this helped me get my dexterity in my hands. It helped me become more proficient at using tweezers, things like that. So you need to buy practice watches, and you need to practice on watches before you touch a client's watch. The basic strip down of a watch and then building it back up is important, and it's important that you use your screwdrivers and your tweezers properly. These are the basic tools of fixing watches to start off with, and then the tool count goes up exponentially. And if you've been in the watch business and you're repairing watches, you know what I mean here. So those are the basic tools that you have to use fixing watches. But buying some sample watches, if you're into pocket watches, you can buy some very old and very cheap pocket watches, maybe $20, or go to shows and pick up some pocket watches. I started on watches, like I said, Russian watches, for practice. After you've gotten a couple of months under your belt fixing practice watches, you're likely going to have some friends who say, hey, you're into watches, can you fix mine? Your best answer right away is to say no, because if you start fixing your friends' watches, first of all, charging them is going to be hard. Secondly, you're probably going to screw them up because you don't have the time invested to learn enough to actually do a good job fixing their watches. So say no, and keep practicing on practice watches, and then start buying better watches for yourself and fixing them. And what I did was I bought pocket watches at one point in time, fixed them, and the idea was I would fix them and then sell them. Well, my wife was the shipping department, and turns out she said the shipping department's not very busy, but the receiving department seems to be working overtime all the time, so which was kind of funny. So you need to practice on watches. Now let's talk tools. Now I started out fixing watches with a very basic set of tools you can buy off Amazon now, with screwdrivers and tweezers and optics. Something like a simple loop to put in your eye. This is what I had. And I bought probably low-end tools from China. I went AliExpress and bought tools there. And every tool I bought, I've replaced since I purchased it. So the initial tools you can buy if you're really not understanding the investment, or you really don't know whether you want to start with this business and or hobby. You can buy some pretty simple tools. The tweezers and screwdrivers aren't that expensive. You can buy cheaper ones and work on these practice watches, but you will eventually need to invest in high-end tools. After a while fixing watches and using these lower-end tools, and you really find that, yes, I do like fixing watches, then don't waste your time buying more low-end tools, and I'll give you an example of this. So loops and magnification. So what I did is I said I need a good loop. So I started with a set of the 5 loops you can buy. I think I had ×2 to ×10 loops, and I started learning how to put those in my eyes and trying to get the loop comfortable and trying to work on a watch with these loops I had purchased. And then I started buying better loops and better loops and better loops, and eventually I ended up saying, well, I saw a Rolex video with a gentleman using the ARY loop, the Airy loop that flips over your glasses, and I said, oh, I got to get myself one of those. It was around $120 US. I invested in 2 of those, actually. I invested in a large and an extra large size, so buy the extra large one. So I went up that slope of procuring loops until I got to what I really needed. So if you watch my videos, you'll see what you really need, and maybe all the money you spent procuring up to that point you'll save and won't waste your money learning on what tool is the best. So this is what you're doing with every tool you buy in watchmaking, including your screwdrivers. I started off with a very small set of screwdrivers. There were 5 screwdrivers. I thought, oh, these will do. They were actually small, and I eventually went to the Bergeron screwdrivers. I eventually got a good set of screwdrivers that I knew that would work, and they're professional screwdrivers. I did this with almost everything. Another example is those pads that you use to put your watch on. I started with those very cheap pads with plastic on the top, I think, and then I eventually got to the Bergeron gel-filled pads, and this is what I use today. Every tool I bought, I started off with low end. Now, if you added up all the money I've spent on tools and what I've gotten to today, including over here on the side is a stereo microscope. Over here on this side is a 1900 time grapher over here. I've got a very nice staking set. I've got a lot of tools here in the back drawer there. More tools, tons more tools. I've got tools locked up. I've got all kinds of jeweling sets. I've got all kinds of tools, J-Cot tools, everything else. It's a real investment. Now, if you buy quality vintage tools and you decide you don't want to be in the watchmaking game anymore, you will be able to sell those quality vintage tools for the same price you bought them for or more if you buy smartly. I bought on eBay, I've bought on Etsy, I've bought from friends. I've made sure I paid the right price for the tool, and you can sell those tools later if you really didn't want to be in watchmaking. But when you die and your kids see them, they're going to say, okay, $100 and whoever wants them. So that's the danger behind this. But you're dead and you don't really care. So it is an investment. What my recommendation here is, don't climb up to the right tools. Find out what the right tools are and then buy those right away, because they are an investment. You'll be able to resell those if you don't pay a fortune for them. A very simple example is a staking set. So I have a staking set right here behind me. And this is a Marshall staking set, a full staking set, a reverso staking set, meaning you can take a stake, put it in backwards, and use it as a stump. And this Marshall set probably cost me $300 at the time. And I know I can, and this is Canadian. I am a Canadian, by the way. They can't, no, don't close the channel down yet. You got to listen. So, because I can speak American, you folks. So you got to buy the right tools. This $300 set I could likely sell for $500 now. So those are an investment. So it's an investment in your business. So don't climb to the right tool. Buy the right tool. This is a very, very high recommendation. Please listen to this. It'll save you a ton of money, and you'll be able to do professional work if you use professional tools. Right tool for the right job. Now let's talk parts. So now you've got yourself a good set of tools. You've started to fix your own watches, and now you need parts. So you need a part source. So to fix watches, if you're doing watches, you can find watch parts. You can find watch movements. You can replace a Seiko watch movement for a different type of Seiko watch movement and maybe improve the performance of that watch. In pocket watches, which is what I primarily do, You can buy parts from suppliers that sell these parts. You can buy mainsprings. You can buy almost all the parts. Balance staffs are a little tougher unless it's an American-made watch. But if you have the tools, like a lathe, you can make a balance staff. It's an investment in time to learn how to do that, but you can make any balance staff. And I can talk about that a little bit later, but you need the right parts. So when you go source a part, you say, can I make that part or do I want to buy that part? What's the option here? Make or buy, and it's time and investment. If you make the part, you're learning, and maybe the next time it's a little faster, but it isn't time and investment. So you pretty much cannot make a mainspring. You have to buy that. So what I don't recommend is that you go buying every damn part out there, because I did a lot of that. Like, I've got a lot of crystals, of which probably 2% of my crystals I'll ever use. I've got a lot of jewels for jeweling, of which 2% of those jewels I'll ever use. So this is the parts game. So this again is climbing up that hill and buying every one of every type of part that's out there. So I think something's in the oven. Went bing. So don't climb the part thing. To find a good supplier of parts where you can be very specific about the part you actually need, and then procure the part. And if you have clients, you can pass that cost of that part on to your client and not hold a significant inventory of parts. Now, my other recommendation is that you go on eBay, go on Etsy, those type of platforms, and look for the guys who are selling all their parts. So I've got a whole basket of mainsprings I want to sell. Do you want to buy them for $60? Those procurements are useful. I've procured recently a set of crystals that are domed, and they're also flat form for hunter watches, watches that have lids on them. And those crystals have become very useful, and I didn't pay a lot of money for the crystals, so having a lot of different crystals for me has been good, because normally when a watch comes in, there's a crystal issue, they're cracked, they're dirty, and replacing the crystal gives that watch, it brings it up from a value perspective quite significantly, because now the watch looks really good with a new crystal. So crystals, I think, are a good investment. Balance staffs are not a good investment, because your particular balance staff is not the one that's going to be in the 1,000 that you bought. I think mainsprings aren't a good investment. I've got a lot of mainsprings I've purchased, and those parts are not. I can go to cousinsuk.com and source a mainspring for a watch or a pocket watch in like 10 minutes and buy that, and it's going to cost me probably around $20, even though you got the UK exchange and shipping. It's only $20, but you can size that mainspring on their website. So mainsprings are not a good investment. Jewels are on and off. So if you're able to get us a bunch of jewels that are going to help you, and receipts jewels, SEITZ jewels, and you've got a jeweling set, then perhaps you should collect some jewels, because jewels are going to cost you $20 each, and then the specific jewel you get better be the exact one you need. So that's good. And then raw material that you need for making parts, like if you buy blued steel, for example, for making balance staffs, that's a good procurement of all different types or sizes of blued steel for cutting balance staffs and other parts. And if you buy some brass, that's also good. I've made jewel settings, as you've seen in some of my YouTube videos, that look exactly like gold when you polish it up, but it's not gold. So those are good. But again, you got to have a lathe to do this work. So that's good raw material that you can use. If you can find watch hands, good sets of watch hands, it's not going to cost you a fortune. That's probably a good procurement, because buying watch hands is stupid expensive for what you get. And then when you get them, you're going to have to fit that watch hand, which means you may have to increase or decrease the size of the hole that fits that watch hand onto the minute wheel, or the pivot or the tube that fits the sub-dial seconds hand onto that fourth wheel on a pocket watch. So watch hands are probably a good procurement. And then the basic stuff you need, like watch paper, you need that. You need oils. You need all of those things that are basic in fixing watches. And you need like isopropyl alcohol. Maybe you need lighter fluid for doing your work. So that's just basic consumables. So buy the consumables that you need, but the replaceable parts there, Not all of them you need to buy. I wouldn't buy any specific lots of, give me every Waltham lever of whatever, or every Hamilton lever, because I might have to repair it. All those type parts, you're going to use only 1 or 2% of those parts probably through your whole life, and that's why everyone else has those for sale. So the message here is be very careful of what you buy and look at what you might consume. It's like aircraft maintenance, for example, which is the world I come from, aerospace. When you're maintaining aircraft, you have to have a set of consumables that you use, things you pour, I call it, but rivets and all that kind of stuff for aircraft and liquids. And then there are parts you're going to need that are very specific that may sit on the shelf forever, but they're ready stock, and you might need that ready stock. For me, the ready stock in watchmaking are watch crystals. Those are ready stock. I don't want to wait for it. I've got a lot of watch crystals that I can use, not a problem. But if I have a broken mainspring, I don't want that ready stock, because mainsprings are so specific to the watch you're maintaining that you might not get the right length, the right power, which is the width of that particular mainspring, or the right thickness of the mainspring, which is power too, I think. Anyway, or the right end on it to actually attach to your barrel. So buy your consumables. Make sure you buy the best consumables, the best watch oils, the best tools for oiling watches, the best tweezers, the best eyepiece. Like I said, the Airy Loop eyepiece. Buy one of those. Buy a decent staking set, like a good staking set, and you'll be able to resell your staking set. And buy a lathe, because you're eventually going to say, hey, I should be able to make something. I went into that and learned about lathes, learned about how to use it. I talked to a guy named Tasconi out of Mexico, New Mexico actually, and he is an expert watchmaker. I bought his videos, but I got to chat with him about what oil to use to oil my lathes. And anyway, I got into lathes, study, bought all the books. And then I became fairly proficient at using the lathe to make parts. So again, don't overstock. Be very careful of what you buy. So once you become fairly proficient at fixing watches, just like I did, the first thing that happened is my buddies called me up and said, hey, I got one of those. Can you fix it? And it was actually an old Seiko Divers watch I had. And one of my friends had a automatic version of the same watch, and the other friend had a digital version, like a quartz version of that same watch. They both wanted them fixed, and I got good at actually removing scratches from the watch, from the crystal as well, because they've got that Seiko Hardlex crystal, and I was able to use my Dremel tool and some pretty harsh surface removing grinding bits to figure out how to do that. And I've got videos on that where I made techniques of how to recover a crystal, and I was able to recover these crystals nicely, but it took me time in order to do that. So my first clients were actually some friends, and I did their watches, removed all the scratches using a Dremel tool and some simple blue compound, I think, or no, it was red compound for stainless steel, and I got rid of all the scratches, and the watches looked new, and I returned them back, and they went, oh man, this is so nice. I really didn't know how to regulate a watch properly at the time. I kind of did and didn't, and I went down that loop. Let's buy every tool that you can buy for regulating watches. If you're going to regulate a watch, I bought the eTimer software, which ran me about $500, which is not cheap. And then eventually I just bought one of these time graphers, the 1900 time grapher, and it does the job. So don't buy all this other stuff. They've got apps on the web, climbed up that app hill again and bought all these apps. Anyway, going down a rat hole here. Anyway, I started off by fixing some friends' watches, and first thing I asked them, I said, how much do you care about this watch if I frig it up on you? Do you really care? Or if I frig this up, you're going to hate me and we're no longer friends. So my first real client, other than myself, buying watches and then trying to sell them, which I haven't done yet, were my friends. My second clients came from my YouTube videos, where I was making videos and people would say, hey, you seem like you're okay at doing this. Could you do my watch? Right? So, and they were YouTube, not even subscribers, just people that saw me on YouTube. And then there were outside people from work who weren't really, I guess they were acquaintances, who said, hey, I got a watch problem. Is there any chance you can fix it? There's also friends I had expensive watches that were quartz and just needed the battery changed, but some of these watches were crazy for battery changes. They had screw-in back case backs and all that. So I started learning about that for watches, wrist watches, and for friends and stuff. But your friends normally didn't have pocket watches. But my YouTube channel helped me get more clientele for doing pocket watches. Then I started working on pocket watches, and made me nervous because I got problems that I hadn't seen before, like jeweling issues where I actually had to, like I've said before, had to make a jewel setting for a very high-end watch, and I had never done that before. I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to not ruin this guy's watch, and I'm going to make a perfect jewel setting, which took a lot of time, but it was a learning exercise, and it was interesting only because I was learning. So my clientele started building there with friends, and then local clients. I live in the Ottawa area in Canada. I joined the Ottawa Watch and Clocks Collectors Society, which is really not a collector society. It's a bunch of clock guys mainly that repair clocks, and there are a segment of that group that are pocket watches, and there's a smaller segment that are watches, but mainly clock guys. And through that group, I got additional work from them saying, where people went to their website and said, is there any chance I can get this watch clock fixed or whatever? And they'd say, oh, go see JD, he can do the pocket watch, not a problem. So I'll call those local clients. So I built local clients up, and they're still coming. Like the watch you saw the other day was from these two ladies that showed up. One lady is actually pretty young, and she's part of the Watch and Clock Collectors Club, and it's her grandmother's mother's watch, the one you saw. I said it's low in value but high in worth. Means emotionally it's worth a lot to them, and I'll get to that in a second. But that's the local clients, and then remote clients came through my YouTube videos, and clients in Canada, which is nice because I don't have to go through the postal systems where the Canadian guys are paranoid all the time about the border guys are crazy. Right? They think that, oh, you bought everything. No, it's here to be repaired. And then I've got a lot of clients in California and North Carolina, and I've gone through tons of clients over the years, and fixing their watches. And so that's my remote clientele, and it's enough to keep me busy, but it's not making me a ton of money. So we're going to talk about this in a second. So now you've learned a lot. You've got the tools. You've got skills that you've had to build up by investing time and actually learning how to do this properly. You've got parts that you've collected. You've got consumables. You've got repairables. And you've got somebody calling you on the phone. And now what you need is time, and you need to determine what your price might be for the various types of repair for the clients that you would have. So now you have to invest in determining what your price level is and what time it's going to take to repair a watch. So the first job you're going to get is likely a cleaning of a watch, but people won't come to you because the watch is dirty. They'll come to you because the watch is not working. I've found only a few people understand the timing part of a watch, like a high-end Hamilton that's not working accurately, and it's plus or minus a million seconds a day, and they want it properly regulated, which means you likely have to clean it first and then regulate it properly. And that's high-end customers that want this. Your normal person says, my watch doesn't work, can you fix it? This is what you will normally get. So cleaning the watch will just become part of the first thing you do when you receive a watch. And that's going to take some time, and it might take some tools. From a tool perspective, you can do basic cleaning like I did for years, and then you can use alcohol, or you can use lighter fluid and do it by hand very carefully and safely, right? And isopropyl alcohol or isotopyl alcohol, and as your final rinse for that, and then you can clean your parts by hand. I did it for old pocket watches, I did it using just lighter fluid for many, many years, and it comes off and the watches work perfectly. And there's lots of schools of thought and all that stuff, but you can start with that, and eventually you might want to get yourself a cleaning machine, like I did. I bought myself a Pearl cleaning machine from India. I bought a high-end one, and it's working today, and it's a good cleaning machine. Or you can buy an Elma cleaning machine, but that's a big investment. you're not going to sell that cleaning machine back to anybody for what you bought it for. It's not like a staking set or other tools. A cleaning machine, you're going to end up, especially if it's a modern one like Elma, you're probably going to lose half of its value when you sell that. So they're going to call you up and say, need to get the watch fixed, blah, blah, blah. What's your price? Now, I usually quote, just for a cleaning, with all the things you need to do to get that watch from when it was received, stripped down, cleaned, all of that is around $250. Now, let's do the math on that. So it's going to take you quite a few hours to get through a watch. So you're not just changing, just changing a crystal, or you're not just, opening up the back and regulating it and giving it back to the guy, which has happened to me from a watchmaker who didn't do anything. You're going to strip that watch down, you're going to clean it, and you're going to build it back up. So that's going to take you at least 2 hours to do that, at least to do it properly. And then you're going to regulate it, and that might take you another half an hour at least to regulate it. If you're a pocket watch guy and you start getting into, or girl, you start getting into regulating the watch, and you're actually working on the balance, for example, or you have to replace the impulse jewel on the watch, or you have to make a new roller table, or you have to do any of that, you're looking at hours and hours more. So like re-shellacking in an impulse jewel quickly, I think, is likely going to take you half an hour to do it properly, right? Working on the balance itself, and you need to adjust the screws on the balance, and then you need to make sure the balance is balanced. It's going to take you probably an hour. If you're going to work on a hairspring at all, it's going to take you at least an hour to sort out a messy hairspring problem. So when you do that, your initial cleaning and everything is going to likely take you on the order of 2 hours to get through that watch if you're really fast. So 3 hours in a comfortable work environment, just driving it will be about 2 hours. And then anything else is wrong with that watch, which usually is, and customers won't always tell you, there's other things that are going to be wrong with it. That's adding it more hours exponentially. So to get through a watch completely from top to bottom is likely going to take you around 6 hours. So a full day. And if you do the math on that, and even if I did the math really simply, and I say I'm getting paid 6 hours and I'm getting paid $10 an hour, I'm getting $60 for that. So if you say I'm going to pay myself $50 an hour, and that's not a lot when you look at a car mechanic's making probably $120 an hour for doing what they do, right? But they have a shop, and so do you, right? And you're saying I want $250 to do a job, and you divide that by 10 hours worth of work, right? That's $25 an hour. So that's not too good. So just do the math on it, and you'll find that you're not going to make a fortune fixing watches. Now my point is that people that are in the watch repair business, when you go to a local watch store, they make a lot of money on batteries, on changing batteries. They'll charge you $20, and the battery is costing them, if you look on Amazon for a set of batteries, you can buy a whole sleeve of batteries for $10, that has 20 batteries in it, and they've got tons of batteries, and so do I. That's something I stock. They're getting $20 for a 5-minute job, and they're making a lot of money on batteries, because people will always come in with their quartz watch and to a jeweler and say, can you change my batteries? The jeweler that's got the hard job won't take it. So if you go into a jeweler with a pocket watch that's got a balance that's twisted, and they've got to use one of their tools to actually straighten up that balance, they don't want to do that, because that's going to take them 2 hours, and you're going to say, well, how much is it? And they say, well, it's $200 to straighten that balance. Anyway, what? You're charging me $200 for that? All you need to do is straighten it. So, and clients will not understand, because they do not understand the mechanics of the watch, and they think it's simple. You just had to change a gear and it's working, right? It's not simple. If you've watched my videos, it's not simple. There are massive books written on watch repair. To make my point, this book alone is this Chicago School of Watchmaking reprint, right? I think I have the original too, but look how thick this book is. This book is just basic watch repair, and this is lessons. I think there's 25 or so lessons on watch repair that cover everything from mainsprings to hairsprings to everything. So again, you're fixing somebody's watch, and you're charging $250 to clean it, and then all of a sudden it's got problems. If you charge them more than 300, and I'm talking US, more than 300, they're probably going to get upset. If the watch is not something that means something to them, then they're going to get really upset because they bought it for 200 and you're charging them 300 to make it work. I had a recent client that called me up and has purchased an Illinois pocket watch, and he's probably watching this right now. And he said, "Can you get my watch working again?" Well, I can get it working, but I wrote him back and said, and he said he bought it a year ago. I said, "Well, obviously this does not mean a lot to you. You just bought it." Well, he wrote me back and said, "I still might want it fixed because I really like this watch and I want it to work," right? So there's a discussion to be had there, because then this watch he probably paid, maybe he paid $350 for it. Well, depending on the problem, it might be a $300 bill. And so it's almost the same money he could use to buy another watch, right? So this gets into the clients that I like, which are the ones that give me watches that mean something to them. This watch is something that was like, I did a Zenith bumper movement just recently, like a small Zenith bumper movement, got it running really well. And this watch meant something to this lady. She's going to give it to her son because it was her grandfather's watch, and it's gold. I think it was like 14 karat pure gold or whatever. A really nice watch. And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." Even though I said no initially rather, I said I'll do it because it meant something to them. I recently did a watch for a gentleman who was giving it to a friend, and I had to redo it. So he sent it back to me again because it just, for some reason, it wasn't working. And I fixed it, and I got it working again really well. And it wasn't a very high-end, expensive watch, but it meant something to the gentleman he gave it to because it was one of his initial watches, and he wanted to gift it down to his family. So I love like fixing memories is what I called it before. Maybe I should call my website Fixing Memories. I love doing that. So the joke in watchmaking is, how do you become a millionaire fixing watches? Pause, pause, pause. You start as a billionaire. That's the joke. My wife actually likes that joke. You're going to spend a lot of money in watches. Let's get to that. So after you've established your business, you've established your clientele, you've got your skills, you've got your reference material that you should always go back to, you've bought a boatload of videos, you know how to use lathes, you do all the things that I typically do, and you're repairing watches. Are you going to make a lot of money at repairing watches? I would say, unless you're going to do this as a business and change batteries and do some of that stuff, you're not going to make a lot of money. So you've got to have the time to invest. So it's an investment in time. So if you're currently working and you're doing this kind of work to make money, you're not going to make as much money as you do for working for an hour at your job, right? But you're going to go home and you're going to be relaxed and you're going to do it as a hobby. So this is where watchmaking as a hobby is good. So I think you look at watchmaking as something you want to do because you like doing it. It's an endless trip down the well of knowledge. Right? So this well is filled right up to the top with knowledge, and you've got to put it into your head and learn. And it's skills, it's hands-on. If you have a thinking job, an office job as I did, which was a thinking job, and you really want to use your hands, it's a great opportunity to do that. There's a wealth of knowledge out there, and there's a wealth of watches out there. Still, it's not all these titanium watches from Apple that my son gave me, and it's not all these non-titanium watch that I ended up buying for no apparent reason, but it's really good. It's just tons of watches out there, and so the hobby is good, but you can't call yourself a watchmaker until you start making parts and stuff. If you're a watch cleaner and a reassembler, fine, but unless you can actually make a balance staff or you can make some parts, then you're considered a watchmaker. And that gives you a little bit of pride. So people say, "Hey, you do watches?" I did a watch for a gentleman at work where I had to replace his crown and stem. It seemed like a simple problem, but it was a little more complex than I thought. He paid me really well for the job. I learned from it, and he really appreciated it. And people at work were understanding that I became a watchmaker. Another quick story, if Bill's watching right now. So a friend of mine, Bill, who was a fighter pilot, had this watch that it was a 7750 chronograph that he had been given years ago as a gift, I think, for the Canadian Air Force. And man, it was not working. Big problem, whatever. And I actually, because I like Bill a lot, I invested in a course to actually buy the oiling procedure for the watch on reassembly. So and I bought the proper holder for the 7750 movement. So I actually procured a lot to enable to fix his watch, and I gave it to him as a birthday present. Every time I see him, I go, "How's the watch?" He goes, "It's still running perfectly." So that made me feel really good, and it had nothing to do with money. It had to do with being a watchmaker and actually fixing a friend's watch who deserved it, meant a lot to him. So there's where I am with it. So fixing memories, I think, is what you need to do. As a hobby, it's good. There's endless knowledge to get, and I really like it, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. So I guess the last thing I wanted to say is it worth it? I think it is. So it's worth it, but you're not going to make a lot of money unless you started off as a business and you say, okay, I'm going to make my money changing batteries. I'm going to do basic stuff. If I get into the complex stuff, then I'm going to have a clientele that will allow me to charge them $1,000 to do some simple Rolex stuff. I'm going to get into very high-end watches, which mean you need certifications for doing that. I don't have certifications. I have the certification of experience, and I have some diplomas I did online for diagnosing and fixing watches. But you're going to need to have that to do this, to do it as a profession and as a business. So if you want to do it as a profession and business, go to Switzerland, go to school for 2 years. They have one school left in the U.S. Go do that, and then become a watch repair person. But if you're just doing it as a hobby, then do it as a hobby. Start off with your own, then with friends, then local clients, and then remote clients, and get good at it, and guarantee your work. So if you do work on someone's watch, you're guaranteeing that it'll work, and if it doesn't work, it's going to come back, and it's your job to fix it, and you're not going to get paid for fixing it the second time. So on that note, please subscribe to my channel, because I love making YouTube videos, because I'm a real ham. I'll try not to make too many guitar and close-up magic videos, but I love making the watchmaking videos, because I learn from the video, actually, and you do too. People seem to like the format of me just working away and you seeing exactly what I'm doing. So I'll stick with that format. Hopefully I'll get as many subscribers as that vintage watch dude who gets 1 million views for every video, and they're all the same. Anyway, so I promise I won't go into a pure production mode like that, and every 3 seconds I'll change scenes, because this is what these dudes do. So I'll be the same guy. I'll keep fixing watches. I recently retired from permanent work. I'll likely do contract work in the future. That has nothing to do, but my t-shirt says, I may be wrong, but I doubt it. Now, I didn't buy that t-shirt, by the way. Someone else gave it to me, one of my kids, I think. So thanks a lot for subscribing to my channel. This might have been a bit too long, but I'm going to put it up and you can listen to it and ask me any questions you want. And if you want me to do a different video on something, let me know. So again, thanks for subscribing. Please get others to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.